researcher who has distorted voter data appointed to Homeland Security election integrity role. So, going over this, of course, we've already mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again now because I know there's going to be somebody who's going to try and correct me on it and stuff like that. Again, voting means nothing. And when you go back to 2020, it was 2020, wasn't it? Yeah. 2020 and the whole election thing, we heard it forever. The election was stolen. The Democrats did the election rigging and so on and so forth. And we've touched on this in the past, but just a reminder, obviously it was rigged. Obviously it was election fraud. Obviously all that stuff was there. Why? Because that's how the elections roll. Every election is rigged. But the reason why 2020 is so important is because they purposely showed their hand. They purposely showed all of the stuff to make it look like the Democrats stole it. Now, most of you know why, and that's because, first of all, Biden was the selection. He was always the selection for that because Biden was in there to cause the chaos that he did, and to be the one that participated in the stolen election, the rigged election, which caused the massive buildup of support and push for Trump to come back in and fix everything. We should all know that. That's pretty obvious at that point. If they're going to go to the lengths of making the stolen election that obvious, you know they did it on purpose, and then we know the campaign that they did for Trump going forward. But during that, one of the main people that was involved with trying to overturn the stolen election is this chick right here. And this could play a part for something in the future. It says a conservative election researcher whose faulty findings on voter data were cited by President Trump as he tried to overturn his 2020 election loss has been appointed to an election integrity role at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So one of the people that was pushing to fix the 2020 rigged election was appointed by Trump for the election integrity role at the Department of Homeland Security. Heather Honey is now serving as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Election Integrity in the Department's Office of Strategy, Policy, and Plans, which this is straight from Homeland Security from their website, and it has the order. She's right here in this box. Heather Honey, the Election Integrity Office right here. I can't make it any bigger. But that's her right there. She's been placed in there. And it says her new role, which didn't exist under President Biden, also comes as Trump has used election integrity concerns as a pretext to try and give his administration power over how elections are run in the United States. So he created a position at the Department of Homeland Security for election integrity and then placed this chick in that position. Now, if we jump over here, it says Trump empowers election deniers still fixated on 2020 grievances. We get some pretty interesting stuff, again, that may play a part in the future of this dismantling and reorganization of the government in the United States as we see. It says election officials from nearly all 50 states gathered on a call last month with the Homeland Security Department's point person on election integrity, eager to hear how the woman filling in a newly created Trump administration position might help safeguard the vote ahead of next year's midterms. Rather than offering assurances that the federal government's election protection programs would continue uninterrupted, the new official, Heather Honey, instead used portions of the meeting to echo rhetoric that has infused the right-wing election activist movement that emerged since Trump falsely claimed that his 2020 defeat was a result of widespread fraud, according to 5 people with the knowledge on the call. Again, we know that it is rigged. Elections are rigged. You don't have a voice. And this was clearly a psyop to get him prepped for what we see happening now. We need to make sure that we're on that same page going forward so we can understand what's going on here. Says Miss Honey, a leader in the movement until her appointment in August as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Election Integrity. She was brought in August. Complained that her department's cybersecurity experts tasked with combating misinformation about elections had strayed from their mission. The remark echoed a widespread view on the right that the agency had sought to silence supporters of Trump's fraud claims. Ms. Honey also repeatedly mentioned a report often cited by the election conspiracists to support their claims that voting machines were rigged to favor Democrats. They were, because you needed to purposely get Biden in there. Again, I got to repeat that because I know there's going to be somebody who's only going to hear bits and pieces of this and try and correct me on it. And it's like, just pay attention. So here's the important part that might be playing a part coming up here in the future, could be relatively soon with midterm election stuff. And this could play a major role in this shift around the United States and the government itself. It says, in the past few months, Trump has elevated multiple proponents of his fraud claims into high-level administration jobs. Now, as government insiders, these activists could wield their newfound power to discredit future results or rekindle old claims to argue for a federal intrusion into locally administering voting systems. On a call with right-wing activists in March, before her appointment to the Homeland Security Department, Ms. Honey suggested that the new administration could declare a national emergency. Everybody paying attention? Honey suggested that the new administration could declare a national emergency and justify dictating new rules to state and local governments. She said that this could be based on an actual investigation of the 2020 election if it showed that there was a manipulation of the vote. And therefore, we have some additional powers that don't exist right now, she said in March, according to a recording reviewed by the New York Times from someone who joined the call. And therefore, we can take these other steps without Congress, and we can mandate that states do things and so on. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up, because if we had this coming out and everything that we see happening, the shuffling of the powers, the executive powers, the shutdown of the government, if the government was still running and they were going through Congress and stuff, none of this would really hold water. It's like, whatever, this is just, you're just throwing something out there to sound things or whatever. But the fact that the government is shut down and they're doing everything to bypass how everything's supposed to be done legally, and the people who are in control, Project 2025, and the shift that we've seen that they're doing, again, the laundry list of things we talked about over and over and over again. We're not going to go over them again. This seems to be holding some water. Now, I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen, but there's some validity to taking actual action that's happening in reality. And hearing this, it's possible that these are validating each other for something that's coming up in the future. And we know that Trump has been using national emergencies or emergency declarations to get all this stuff done. Who's to say that he doesn't declare a national emergency before all this stuff happens, all the election stuff happens, and so on and so forth? That's what she's suggesting. If we jump down, it says the idea of reinvestigating the 2020 election gained steam recently with the White House's decision to hire Kurt Olson, a lawyer who has been tasked with examining the 2020 vote and other election matters, according to the White House official. The hiring of Mr. Olson, who has worked closely for years with the pillow entrepreneur Mike Lindell to promote stolen election theories, was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. Another activist, Marcy McCarthy, who spread debunked claims that the voting machines in Georgia about voting machines in Georgia when she was the chairwoman of DeKalb County Republican Party, was named in May to be the director of public affairs at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, which is housed at the Homeland Security Department. And here she is. This is the one who is a part of the Georgia voting machine stuff, Marcy McCarthy. She's now director of public affairs. If we jump down beyond her professional achievements, McCarthy is recognized political leader serving for 3 terms as the chair of the DeKalb Republican Party. McCarthy also served as on numerous task forces and boards with the Georgia Republican Party, as well as the national delegate to the Republican National Convention in 2020 and 2024. So she is indeed part of that as well, and now she's public affairs at CISA. Ms. McCarthy's appointment comes as nearly all of the election experts at CISA have been placed on administration leave or reassigned this year amid a large-scale downsizing of the agency, which had played a leading role in deterring attacks on election systems and combating disinformation about voting. Okay, so we got that going on. So we have what we can take from reality in front of us actually happening right now. Then we can take this information and go, okay, so this person who's now in a position of pretty good power when it comes to election integrity is bringing up some ideas about using national emergency and so on and so forth to dictate local and state governments and elections and all that type of stuff. And then there's been some other things happening that may also be playing an effect when it comes to elections as well. What to know about redistricting efforts across the United States. Trump's desire to secure the Republican majority in Congress has prompted an unusual burst of mid-decade redistricting in multiple states. North Carolina is the latest to take action. Texas was the first to answer Trump's call to redraw its congressional districts for the GOP's advantage ahead of next year's elections. Democrats in California countered with their own redistricting efforts, followed by Republicans in Missouri. Other states are considering to join the redistricting battle. So basically what they're doing is they're trying to draw new lines for districts to make it so there's more congressional seats for Republicans than Democrats, which makes it easier for them to retain power in those districts. That's what they're trying to do. And so you have California, Texas, and a whole host of them that are all getting on board with drawing new districts. Says the U.S. House districts typically are redrawn once a decade immediately after a census, but some states have no rules against redistricting more frequently than that. And the U.S. Supreme Court has said that there's no federal prohibition on political gerrymandering in which districts are intentionally drawn to favor one party, which that seems like it needs to be fixed. Whether it's, that just doesn't seem right, but it's what they're saying. So a state can just redraw districts whenever they feel to try and gain seats, which again, that doesn't seem right. But we have a lot of states all doing this now because Trump has called for it for more, to make sure that he holds the seats. Then there's this, Trump's DOJ prepares to send election monitors to California and New Jersey following requests from state GOPs. So now you have federal agents going to monitor state stuff, which that never happens, but it's happening now. And then this one is fascinating. On top of it, this one makes me laugh. Republican buys Dominion voting systems, forces them to drop lawsuits against conservatives. So the Dominion voting systems that were used during the 2020 PSYOP rigging have now been bought by a Republican and dropped all the lawsuits that this company filed against conservatives who align themselves with the Trump administration. Dominion Voting Systems has been acquired by founder and chairman of Liberty Vote, Scott Leindecker, in a deal which included dropping lawsuits against conservatives. Leindecker, former GOP election reform advocate, has officially become the sole owner of Dominion after making the deal contingent upon dropping several remaining lawsuits against prominent conservatives and One American News Network. Leindecker further disclosed to the caller that remaining litigation with MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and former Trump campaign attorney Sidney Powell will be dropped by Dominion Voting Systems as part of the acquisition agreement. So buy the systems, buy the company, and drop all charges and lawsuits against Trump's friends. Dominion also filed a lawsuit against Herring Networks, which owns One American News Network, in August of 2021. The lawsuit remained undissolved, although Leyendecker further confirmed that future litigation will be discontinued following the acquisition. The Liberty Vote will be inheriting ongoing litigation with former Overstock.com CEO Patrick Byrne, the Daily Caller had learned. The acquisition makes Dominion a fully American-owned company, a shift Leyendecker said is designed to strengthen public confidence, enhance transparency, and rebuild trust. That's exactly what the WEF was about when the year that Trump took over. Remember? Rebuild trust and the integrity of U.S. elections. If you guys can't see through all of that, I don't know what to say. But man. So, is it possible that they're planning something relatively soon, maybe in line with the midterm elections, to try and let this be a major part of their Project 2025 reshuffling of government and so on and so forth? I'd say it's possible. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm not saying there's going to be riots breaking out. I'm not saying that any of that stuff's going to happen because we don't know. This stuff can change very quickly. But we have a lot of evidence in front of us that says that they may try something. And so I just want to put that forward on that. And there's this political philosophy thing that I've seen where it's 16 steps or 16 indicators, 16 markers. There's various ways that they call it to authoritarianism. And it's you must complete these 16 steps in order to install an authoritarianism system within a country. And this is going off of history. This isn't somebody just making something up and creating a list. This is going off of taking history of past authoritarian regimes, dictatorships, empires, monarchies, and all these types of things, and taking all the ways that they created their governments and comparing them and creating a list and compiling 16 steps to make it happen. As we go through this list, I want you guys to pay attention. Have we or are we seeing these things happen in our country right now? 16 steps to authoritarianism. Cult of personality. A leader that people follow no matter what. It's the cult of personality. A specific leader, a specific ruler that people will follow no matter what. Weaponization of law. Using the judicial system as well as law in any way possible in order to apply your authoritarian policy and remove opposition. Revision of history and culture. This is basically not only a revision of history of the leader themselves as they come to power, building legends and myths and so on and so forth to increase his ability to be a cult of personality, but also revision of history and culture in the country to conform to what the cult of personality wants to install. Elimination of representation. Removing the people's voice. That's what that means. Consolidation of executive power means taking the power of all systems and departments that are there for checks and balances and funneling it back up to the executive power situation or group. Persecution of political opposition. Removal of any of those that are a threat or have a voice against your regime. Fusion of religion and nationalism, utilizing a religion of that country as well as the nationalism of that country, putting them together, making it that if you are a part of that religion or you are a nationalist or a patriot or whatever they may call themselves, they funnel them together and go, we must all stand together for our religion, for our country. Suppression of intellect and expression. This is basically suppressing education, suppressing intellectuals, suppressing experts, and suppressing the arts and the creative industries, which may go against or disprove the cult of personality, the revision of history in the authoritarian government that they're trying to install. The dehumanization of people. Basically taking a group of people or groups of people and making them less human, so whatever is done to them, you don't have any emotional reaction to. So that could be various groups and people, depending on where you're at, the country that you're at, and the time that you're at. Privatization of military and police. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Establishment of state-run media. So basically suppressing independent, truthful journalism and installing a state-run media, which is, we're going to feed you the information that we want you to have. Glorification of war and expansion of your country, geopolitical or globally. Corporate cronyism over Congress, basically installing corporations in the place to make decisions that Congress normally would. Country over human rights, which means give up your rights for the greater good of your country through nationalism or religion. Elimination of the financially poor. This usually comes with economic downfall. They blame the poor for the economic downfall. So you have to eliminate the financially poor, however they choose to do so. And deployment of emergency powers. Utilize emergency powers that take power and control away from the checks and balances system towards the executive order or the executive power, so they can make all the decisions and go on and so forth. According to history, it's these 16 steps of authoritarianism that have led to dictatorships, authoritarian regimes, empires, monarchies, and so on and so forth. These are how it's done. Now, again, we could go over the entire list and point things out. If you guys see what's happening, I think most of these have been done so far here, but that's my perspective on it. Now, a lot of people would say, but if you go back in history, other presidents have tried and done things like this before. I agree, but the thing is when you go back in history, whether it's Biden, Obama, Bush, and so on and so forth, just take it all the way down, you may have seen 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe come in that they're trying to do. You may see one come in and then go away, and so on and so forth. You may have seen various points of this come in during their rulings. I call them rulings, presidencies, whatever. But during their presidency rulings. But for the most part, we haven't ever seen like the full list be deployed all at the same time. I think we're currently seeing this full list being deployed at the same time right now.